So, hello and very good morning, my dear students and friends. Welcome back to my class. We were discussing about the CBT, and today we'll be discussing about the Nagoya Protocol on access and benefit sharing. So, very good morning, everyone. I'm Professor Urusilias, working in Department of Wildlife Sciences, Aligarh Muslim University, Aligarh. So, what is the international protocol? The international protocol we have already discussed. This is the formal agreement between countries to address global or regional issues that require collective action. If there are some issues that every nation has to come together and we have to resolve, we have to take some collective action, and that is the international protocol. So, what is the purpose of the international protocol? Establish standards, we have to define guidelines for addressing global challenges, facilitate cooperation, promote international collaboration and coordinated actions, ensure compliance, set mechanism for monitoring and enforcing commitment. And there are different types: environmental, trade and health. So, for example, environmental is the Nagoya Protocol, that is Nagoya Protocol, which we are going to discuss in this lecture in length. So, Nagoya Protocol is actually the genetic resource access and benefit sharing, how we can share the benefits arising from the genetic material of the country which is having the sovereign right. So, trade like CITES, it's regulated trade is endangered species, Convention on International Trade of Endangered Species, and then health. International health regulation, global health emergency responses. So, these are the types of the international protocol, and the main key features of the protocol are the legally binding, often have legal implication for signatory, negotiated, developed through international negotiation. Of definitely, if you are going to sign a treaty and agreement, negotiation is one of the component. You have to negotiate. Every country has to put their own observation, their own problem, their own solutions. So, legally binding, and then negotiation. Implementation included monitoring and enforcement provision, and for that we keep on, every nation has to make their own action plan to implement the international convention, and to monitor, we have at certain time interval we have COPs, Conference of the Parties. So, these are the three component of the international protocol. That is the what is the purpose, and then types, and then what are the key features. So, what is the background of the Nagoya Protocol? We know that Convention on Biological Diversity took place in 1992, and the Convention on Biological Diversity has three objectives. And this Convention on Biological Diversity was for the conservation of biodiversity, sustainable use of its components, and the third was the access to genetic resources in exchange for fair and equitable sharing of the benefits derived from their utilization. So, we are ready to give the genetic resources, but in return the nation, the provider need fair and equitable sharing of benefits deriving from their utilization. The Nagoya Protocol, which took place in Japan, Nagoya, Japan in 2010, aims to provide a legal framework that creates clarity, transparency and legal certainty for the equity relationship of the CBT. So, there were the three objective of the CBT 1992, and the main objective was the access to genetic resources, in return fair and equitable sharing of the benefit deriving from their utilization. Key milestone: 2002 World Summit of Sustainable Development. Government called for creating an international regime for fair and equitable benefit sharing of genetic resources. In 2004, ad hoc open-ended working group under the Convention on Biological Diversity was tasked with negotiating an international regime for access and benefit sharing, which is also known as the ABS. And 2010, After 6 years of the negotiation, the Nagoya Protocol and on access and benefit sharing was adopted on 29 October 2010 in Nagoya, Japan. So it was actually started in 2002 and finally in 2010 it was adopted. Nagoya Protocol on ABS, access and benefit sharing, and overview. What is it? So, supplementary agreement to the Convention of the Biological Diversity, it provides a transparent legal framework for the effective implementation of one of the three objectives of CBD, the fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from the utilization of the genetic resources, aims to prevent biopiracy, and it was adopted on 29 October 2010 in Nagoya, Japan, entered into force by 12th October 2014. It was adopted in 2010, but still it took time to be enforced entered into the force by 12th October 2014, almost 4 years after it was ratified by 141 country as of 22. There are 141 countries, signatory countries ratified as of 2024. So, genetic resources in this context include any material of plant, animal, microbial or other origin containing functional units of heredity which are of actual or potential value of derivatives. Traditional knowledge refer to knowledge known how and practice of indigenous and local communities relevant for the utilization of the genetic resources access under the protocol. Suppose we know the use of turmeric since ages, but there is no documentation. So that is actually the traditional knowledge, how the local people, how the traditional people are utilizing the product, the genetic product since generation to generation, and transfer is being transferred from one generation to another generation and carrying on. So this is the traditional knowledge referred to knowledge known how and practice of indigenous and local community relevant for the utilization of the genetic resources access under the protocol. It does not apply to human genetic resources. Genetic resources covered by specialized ABS treaties that are supportive of the Convention of the Biological Diversity. For instance, the International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture. So, the objective of the Nagoya Protocol, fair and equitable sharing, we already know, access to genetic resources, conservation and sustainable utilization, benefit to provider countries, and strengthen legal certainty. So, these were the objective of the Nagoya Protocol. Fair and equitable sharing means ensure that fair and equitable sharing of the benefits arising from the utilization of the genetic resources. Access to genetic resources, facilitate access to genetic resources based on prior informed consent and mutually agreed terms, conservation and sustainable use, support the conservation of biodiversity and the sustainable use of its component. So, benefit to provider countries, ensure that benefits such as research, technology transfer and financial gain are shared with countries providing the genetic resources. And the last is the strengthen legal certainty. Provide legal certainty for both provider and user of genetic resources. Why is the Nagoya Protocol was important? Legal certainty and transparency, ensure clear legal guideline for provider and user of genetic resources, establish predictable condition for access to genetic resources. Benefit sharing facilitates fair and equitable benefit sharing, especially when resources are transferred across the border. Encourage research. Promote research by ensuring legal clarity, leading to discoveries and advancement in genetic resources. Incentive for conservation. Encourage sustainable use of genetic resources and enhances biodiversity's contribution to develop and human well-being. So whatever we are doing, whatever conservation we are doing, that is for the development and human well-being. The protocol rests on three pillars: access. User seeking access to genetic resources must get permission from the provider country, known as prior informed consent (PIC), unless otherwise determined by that party. Second is the benefit sharing. Provider and use must negotiate an agreement to share benefit resulting from the use of genetic resources, and that is known as the mutually agreed terms or MAT. So, compliance Nagoya Protocol creates obligations to comply with national ABS legislation and mutually agreed terms, monitor the utilization of genetic resources, checkpoints, internationally recognized certificate of compliance. So these protocols also address access to traditional knowledge associated with genetic resources, benefit sharing from the use of such knowledge, and compliance with ABS legislation on such knowledge. The scope of Nagoya Protocol genetic resources covered includes any genetic resources that fall under the Convention on Biological Diversity, applies to biological material that contain genetic information, that is the genetic resource covered, and the traditional knowledge, protect traditional knowledge related to the use of genetic resources. I am again and again giving the example of the turmeric, neem, azadirachta, everything. So ensure benefit sharing from traditional knowledge associated with biodiversity. Research and development applies to research on genetic resources for commercial or non-commercial purposes, for example, pharmaceutical, agriculture, biotechnologies. So these are the scopes of the Nagoya Protocol and the obligation. The Nagoya Protocol sets out core obligation for its contracting parties to take measure about access to genetic resources, benefit sharing, and compliance. These are the obligations. Access to genetic resources, access procedure. What are the access procedure? How one country can access, one state can access the genetic material. So one is the prior informed consent and mutual agreed terms. Prior informed consent means user must obtain consent from the provider countries before access, and terms for resource use must be negotiated between the user and the provider, that is called mutually agreed terms. And who is affected? The providers and the users. Providers, government, indigenous groups, local community, they are affected. Users, research, companies, organizations, and countries seeking access to genetic material for scientific or commercial uses. The legal framework: countries must develop domestic laws and institutions to regulate access and ensure benefit sharing. Access obligation, national level measure, encouraging research and food security consideration. So national level measure means domestic law should create legal certainty, fairness, and transparency in access procedure. Non-arbitrary rules must be in place to govern access request. Clear procedure for PIC and MAT must be established, and along with that, we have to encourage the research. The measure should promote research contributing to biodiversity conservation and sustainable use. Facilitate access for non-commercial research purpose, especially to address encouraging like disease, outbreak, all these things. And the food security, give special attention to genetic resources important for food security and the agriculture. So these are the access obligation. Benefit sharing, monetary benefits. Definitely, if you are going to use the genetic material for the commercial uses, for the commercial purposes, then there are scope of the monetary benefits. So monetary benefits: royalty, access fees, milestones payment, or licensing fees from commercial use of genetic resources. Non-monetary benefit: there are more non-monetary benefits also, like sharing research results, technology transfer, training, and capacity building. collaboration that supports sustainable development in provider countries. And the benefit sharing mechanism is benefits should be shared based on mutually agreed terms between provider and user. For example, pharmaceutical research, biotechnological innovation, or agriculture advancement using genetic resources. Importance of benefit sharing. What is the importance of the benefit sharing? Fairness and equity. Ensure that country providing genetic resources receive a fair share of the benefits. Promotes equity between development and developed countries. Biodiversity conservation creates incentive for countries to conserve biodiversity, knowing they will benefit from its utilization. Research collaboration promotes partnership between research institutions and companies in resource-rich countries. So, this is the importance of the benefit sharing, compliance obligations, ensuring compliances. User must comply with the provider countries' ABS regulation. Genetic resources must be accessed legally, followed PIC and amity procedure. International cooperation. Countries must cooperate to address violation and illegally access to genetic resources. Joint action to ensure compliances with national and international laws. The monitoring, establish checkpoint to monitor the use of genetic resources through research, development and commercialization phases. Tool of compliances and implementation. What are the tools? The national focal points and the serve as contact point for ABS related information. Every nation is responsible. Serve as a contact point for ABS related measures, help facilitate access request and compliance measures. Competent national authority responsible for granting access to genetic resources and overseeing benefits sharing arrangement. And ABS clearing houses provide a platform for sharing national ABS laws measure as well as information on access and benefit sharing arrangement. The most important is the traditional knowledge and indigenous rights. Protection of traditional knowledge, recognizing the role of indigenous community in conserving and using biodiversity. Ensure their prior informed consent for the use of genetic resources associated with traditional knowledge. So, this is the protection of traditional knowledge and then benefit sharing with indigenous community. So, whatever benefits are arising from the genetic resources which are being used or which are intellectually the local community knows how the benefit sharing can be done for the indigenous community. So, benefit sharing with indigenous community, indigenous groups should receive fair benefits from use of their traditional knowledge. And cultural respects, law should respect community law, practices and procedure when accessing traditional knowledge. Capacity building for implementation. The first is developing domestic ABS laws. Second is the countries need support to draft and implement national laws and align with the Nagoya Protocol, strengthening research institutions. The third is the enhance in country research capability to benefit from genetic resources and related technologies, that is the technology transfer. And fourth is the promote the transfer of environmentally sound technologies to developed countries, awareness raising. And fifth is, and the last is the increased understanding of ABS laws and benefit especially in indigenous and local community. So, this is the capacity building for implementation and financial support mechanism, which is very important. Global Environmental Facility, GEF, provides funding to support the implementation of the Nagoya Protocol, and targeted supports are financial resources are allocated for capacity building, technical support and legal framework development. Sustainable use biodiversity support projects that promotes biodiversity conservation and sustainable use in line with ABS regulation. What is the Nagoya Protocol in India? Nagoya Protocol and India. So, Nagoya Protocol in India, the domestic legislation in India for the implementation of the CBD is the Biological Diversity Act. In 2002, we had on the basis of the Convention on the Biological Diversity to 1992, we made our own act, that is the Biological Diversity Act 2002. India signed the Nagoya Protocol in 2011 and ratified in the October 2012. The ratification by India was done at the 11th conference of the party, 11th COP, to the CBT, which was conducted in Hyderabad. So, this is all about the Nagoya Protocol, access benefit sharing, and the role of the India. We have the National Act, CBD Act 2002, and we signed and ratified the Nagoya Protocol. So, thank you very much. We'll be meeting in our next class. Till then, enjoy my lecture. Thank you.